Welcome to today's explainer, the US-Iran ceasefire. 7 key points. Today we're mapping out one of the absolute biggest geopolitical shifts we've seen all year. We're going to unpack exactly what's happening on the ground, pulling straight from the latest reports to bring you the core mechanics of this sudden truce. We'll explore how a targeted military de-escalation in the Middle East is literally sending shockwaves across global energy grids, financial markets, and international diplomacy. But before we get too deep into the weeds, there's one massive question looming over the whole shebang. Is this a lasting peace or just a temporary pause? Keep that firmly in the back of your mind as we go. It's the central question setting the stakes for our entire geopolitical analysis today. Every military concession, every barrel of oil, and every ticking diplomatic clock we're about to explore feeds directly into this single, crucial unknown. Section 1. The Ceasefire Agreement. Okay, let's dive into this. 15. That's 15 weeks of incredibly intense, highly escalated conflict between the United States and Iran leading right up to this moment. To really grasp the gravity of this truce, you've got to understand the pressure cooker of those 15 weeks. We aren't just talking about diplomatic posturing here. This was a period defined by high-stakes proxy skirmishes, relentless drone intercepts, and major military assets mobilized all across the Persian Gulf, Iraq, and Syria. The whole region was basically balancing on a knife's edge, right? Just one miscalculation away from a localized incident spiraling into a wider regional war. But now, after months of this exhausting, wildly expensive, and incredibly dangerous tension, both sides have officially agreed to halt major military operations. It's a dramatic night and day shift from where we were just a few days ago, putting a hard freeze on direct armed confrontation and letting forces on both sides finally stand down from high alert. A foundational piece of this whole military stand-down involves the critical waters surrounding the region. The U.S. has agreed to immediately stop its naval blockade of Iranian ports. Guys, this is a massive operational shift. For months, that heavy U.S. naval presence has essentially acted as a physical chokehold on maritime movement in and out of Iran. It severely restricted their ability to export goods and put this immense, suffocating pressure on the Iranian economy. So, ending this blockade? It's arguably the most tangible, immediate concession of this entire agreement. It removes a major physical barrier, pulls warships back from those incredibly tight quarters where, mistakes happen, and it signals a very real step back from the brink of wider conflict. Section 2. Reopening global trade routes. The geography here really highlights the staggering leverage at play, because the Strait of Hormuz is officially set to reopen. To put the stakes into perspective, an incredible 20% of the entire global oil trade passes through this single, narrow geographic choke point. We're talking roughly 21 million barrels of oil moving through there every single day. And get this, while the strait itself is about 21 miles wide, the actual deep water shipping lanes that those massive supertankers have to navigate, they're only 2 miles wide in either direction. It's like threading a needle with a freight train. When military tensions spike in a bottleneck that tight, the entire global energy supply chain basically holds its breath. By removing the military threat in this specific, highly volatile zone, one of the world's absolutely most vital shipping routes is back in business, instantly unplugging a massive bottleneck in the global supply chain. Section 3. Markets and oil react. Because of that unplugged bottleneck, we're seeing an immediate, dual economic reaction unfolding in real time. On one hand, oil prices are dropping significantly. Why? Well, it's all about the war premium, that extra cost baked into the price of a barrel of oil just because the market is terrified of a sudden supply disruption. With the Strait of Hormuz reopening and the threat of a regional war cooling off, that war premium has evaporated almost overnight. But at the exact same time, global stock markets are rallying. Investors everywhere are enthusiastically welcoming this sudden drop in overarching geopolitical risk. You see, when energy prices fall, inflation fears start to ease. Central banks can breathe a little easier, and consumer confidence often gets a nice little bump. The tension drops, millions of barrels of oil start flowing freely again, and the financial markets let out a massive sigh of relief. Section 4. The 60-day diplomatic window. But, of course, the economics are really only half the story. Diplomacy is the other. Starting from day one, the moment the ceasefire was reached, a strict 60-day diplomatic window clicked open. Over the next 8 weeks, both sides have explicitly agreed to get back to the table and continue negotiations. And the absolute dominant focus of these returning talks? Iran's nuclear program. Now, 60 days is a historically tight window for international diplomacy of this magnitude. They are trying to hash out immensely complex issues, things like uranium enrichment levels, the installation of monitoring cameras by the International Atomic Energy Agency, and the exact timetables for compliance. By setting a hard 2-month deadline, they've created this ticking clock scenario. It forces a real sense of urgency, stopping things from just stalling out indefinitely. But it also creates a looming cliff edge. They've given themselves exactly 2 months of diplomatic space to nail down international agreements before this fragile, agreed-upon window officially slams shut. Section 5. What remains unresolved? So the crucial point here is that major, highly complex disagreements remain entirely unsettled. Even with the naval blockade ending and the oil freely flowing again, analysts really view this as a pause rather than a comprehensive peace treaty. And that's because of 3 massive hurdles. First up, the incredibly dense web of economic sanctions. The United States maintains thousands of primary and secondary sanctions on Iranian individuals, entities, and financial institutions. Unwinding all of that, or even just agreeing on which ones to suspend in exchange for nuclear compliance, is an absolute legal and political labyrinth. Second, you have Iran's ballistic missile programs. Totally separate from the nuclear issue, the development, testing, and potential spread of these advanced delivery systems remains a massive red line for the West. Meanwhile, Iran views those capabilities as completely non-negotiable for its own defense. And third, the overarching long-term security arrangements for the entire Middle East. This involves the complex network of proxy groups and the fundamental security architecture with neighboring states like Saudi Arabia and Israel. None of these deeply entrenched issues have been resolved yet. They're just sitting there, waiting on the other side of this 60-day window. So we're looking at immense, tangible relief in global trade and financial markets today, but it's heavily contrasted against massive, deeply rooted, decades-old security issues that are still sitting right there on the negotiating table. As the ticking clock of this diplomatic window counts down, we have to ask ourselves, is 60 days really enough time to untangle an entire web of sanctions, missile programs, and regional security paradigms? Is this a lasting peace, or just a temporary pause?